Hello everybody, welcome to this week's live stream. I'm David Jones and I do this every Friday at 2:30 UK time. The way it works, it runs for, 45 minutes to an hour, however long we've got, however long it takes. We'll have a look at some of the major announcements for next week and then we will jump into the markets as usual. So we'll look at the major stock market indices, FX pairs, commodities, gold, oil, Bitcoin, all the usual stuff. Then if there's any stuff you want looking at, put it in the chat, in the YouTube chat, and we'll take a look at it once we've been through the stuff that I've been looking at. It's been an interesting week this week. We had a bit of I was doing a webinar last night. I'll talk a bit more about that as we go through. But this big sell-off last night in bond markets in particular, because of what happened, there was that breaking news that a major bank in China had been hacked. So we saw quite a bit of volatility last night. We'll have a look at those in a bit more detail. Perhaps it was an opportunity in the end. I was talking about it on the webinar last night. I don't know if any of you were there. Market sells off, market overreacts, and bang, we've bounced a bit today. I think it's an interesting market to watch today. That's UST bonds. So let's see. Anyway, let's get into the old stuff. Get the paperwork out of the way. This presentation is only for educational purposes. It does not contain and should not be construed as containing investment advice or an investment recommendation or an offer of or solicitation for a transaction in any financial instrument. David Jones accepts no responsibility for any use that may be made of these comments and for any consequences that result. You should consider whether you understand how spread bets, CFDs, futures, foreign exchange work, and whether you can afford to take the high risk of losing your money. Trading is risky. Okay, let's have a look. Next week then, there's quite a bit next week. I suppose Tuesday's a busy day. So on Tuesday of next week, we've got European, Eurozone GDP. So the economy. How well is the economy doing or not in the Eurozone? We had those UK numbers today, didn't we? What was it, just flat, the UK economy? Hang on a second. UK economy flat lines, failed to grow between July and September after a succession of rate rises, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it'll be interesting to see what the EU economy is like next week. US inflation, that's probably the big one, I think, for next week. Tuesday, US inflation data, and then later on in the day, Japanese GDP. So, again, how well or not is the Japanese economy doing? Then Wednesday, we've got US PPI, the Producer Price Index. That's the factory gate inflation, I think, isn't it? So, yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday, US inflation numbers will be the one to watch. So they will be interesting. Okay, let's see. So that's that. So I'll normally jump into the markets now. I'll talk about the trading course. You know I run a trading course. If you've watched this before, it's been running for a few years. Covers medium-term trading and short-term trading. Lots of content, lots of regular live webinars, direct with me. You get access to the WhatsApp group where I update every day the trades I'm doing, what I'm looking at, what's going on in markets, all of that. I think most trading courses are rubbish. They're run by people who don't actually trade. I traded this public account, £4,000 from November to January last year. You can see it here, made just under £2,200 profit. I have to say, past performance is no guarantee of future performance. I did it again in May, June, July of this year. Was it a £5,000 account this time? I think it was £5,000 account this time. The booked profits in the end were, excuse me, just over £3,000. So just over a 60% return on that account. I have to say, past performance is no guarantee of future performance, but you know, if you've watched the YouTube channel at all before, you know I do stuff with real money. I don't faff around with demo accounts. Yeah, and I've done this for a long time, so I did that because I think, you know, you need to understand that if you're going to buy a trading course of somebody, they know what they're doing, and they do it, and I do it every day. Talking about every day, there's a WhatsApp group that used to be just part of the trading course, but I opened it up a few months ago. In that, there's a daily update, what I'm looking at, what trades I've got running, markets I'm watching, trades I'm running, Q&A. If anyone's got any questions, they can fire them in during the day. So I normally answer the questions. If you want to try it, it's always going to be chargeable. It's never going to be free. It's normally £50 a month. If you use the code YouTube, you get a 20% discount on the first month. All the links is in the description to this video. And that's a snapshot. That's from a while ago, that. A snapshot of the sort of thing that I will post in the morning. So a little bit about markets. Well, quite a lot about markets usually and trades I'm running. And then like a chart of the day. Interesting chart of the day. I've got no idea what market that was. It was a while ago. 5-star Trustpilot reviews for the course. I send out, I always say this, I don't actually do it. I used to send out a newsletter every week. I've been really lazy though, because I've been quite busy, which is an excuse, not a reason. So the newsletter is free. If you go to the website, you can sign up for the newsletter. I will absolutely start sending that out again. I've just been I've actually had to do quite a bit of work recently, so that hasn't been good. If you go to the website, you can sign up for the newsletter there. And then I'll start sending that out, maybe even this weekend, who knows. So it's all on the website, davidjonestrading.co.uk. You can find out more about everything there and sign up for stuff. Now, I did this webinar last night. The reason I'm a bit flagging today, I was doing a webinar till about 8:30 last night. I'm a bit tired. Did this invitation-only webinar last night. So if you came to that, I hope you enjoyed it. If you couldn't make it, but you registered anyway, I will send out the link to the recording later today or tomorrow. And the topic for the webinar was, if 70% of people lose, what do I need to do differently? So that's that. There is a recording of that. If you want the recording, access to the recording, if you haven't registered for it before, send me an email, dj@davidjonestrading.co.uk. In the webinar, I talked about this new venture I'm doing. It's a big thing for me. I'm working with a broker, and I'm working with this broker. It's a broker I haven't talked about before. I'm working with them because of the people there. There are two guys, the chief exec and the person who deals with my part of the business I've worked with before in the old days when I used to work at IG Group. So I am working with this broker. We're going to do lots and lots of webinars like this. This one is the last public one. So after this, it's just for people who've got an account. So if you watch this webinar and you think it's useful, and it is useful because it's me doing it and I do know what I'm talking about, all you need to do is open an account to get access to other webinars in the future. I'll put details in the email. But if you want to have a look, if you go to bit.ly/DavidTrade and hopefully that comes up with the page with my face on it. There you go. So you know it's definitely me. There you go, that's me. So you can open an account there with them, and I'm going to do a whole load of stuff, and these regular webinars is just one of them. So that's all that. Okay, so if you want access to that webinar, drop me an email and I'll sort it out. Right, that's it, isn't it? Let's have a look at the markets, see what's going on. Where do you start? Let's start with stock markets. I think it's interesting. I mean, stock markets have it's been a bit of a flat week. That's the S&P, for example. Right, so this is the week. This was Monday. So you can see we're pretty flat on the week after having quite a barnstorming week or so. You know, we're pretty flat in the week. What is interesting for me, and there's no trade for me today, but I think it's interesting because if you absolutely wanted to go short US stock markets, well, here we are. You know, we've rallied back up to the old highs from October. So I think it makes for a really interesting week next week. If these markets are going to run out of steam anywhere, well, we're here. So let's see. You know, maybe there'll be something in those inflation numbers. That's the catalyst. I don't know. Let's see what happens. But I thought it was really interesting. You know, on the S&P, let's call it 4,400 is the level. If that runs out of steam, if it runs out of steam there, it's an interesting short. On the Nasdaq, similar sort of. I mean, the Nasdaq's had a little poke through that downtrend from the summer, but again on the Nasdaq, 15. Let's call it 15.4. Let's round it up. 15.4 on the Nasdaq. Let's see what happens. But if we see strength through there, it starts to look like these corrections from the summer are over. So I think it's a really interesting week next week for US stock markets. I don't have any short-term trades on US stocks at the moment, so I'm quite interested to see how it all pans out and see what happens. So those for me are the levels to watch next week. DAX, look at that, textbook downtrend on the old German DAX. Textbook bounce off the lows as well. Who thought this stuff does actually work now and again? So, blah, blah, blah. again, the same. Let's see what happens. We've got this downtrend on the DAX since end of July. We're back up to that trend line. Is this where we see these markets turn around, or do we see them break out and off we go to test those highs from the summer? I don't know, but let's see what happens next week. For now, though, the trend is down, so I'd be lean. If I had to do anything on the DAX, I would be a seller rather than a buyer. So let's see. Let's see what happens. FTSE, bit messy as usual, doing its own thing. FTSE, just sideways, you know. I don't even, what would you do? I don't know. Maybe if it sells off a bit next week, there's a buying opportunity because we're at the bottom of the range. But nothing, for me, there's nothing too exciting in that FTSE 100. Japanese 225, the Nikkei. Again, you know, some people would argue, it's a fair argument, the trend has been down since June. I would also say the trend has been up all year. We're a bit stuck at the moment. I don't know. I don't really have a firm opinion on that one. But again, you know, just interesting. Me, next week, these US stock markets, what happens up at these old highs. So, yeah, I think it'll be an interesting week next week. So that's stock markets. So wait and see for me, but perhaps a bit of clarity as next week goes on. Let's talk about some other markets. Dollar index. I'm long the dollar index. I bought the dollar index last night, about 5 o'clock last night. It worked quite well in the end because the market did actually take off. But and I'm still in the trade. But on the dailies, it's a bit messy, I think. You know, it's you know, we'd had the downtrend off September last year, highs. You know, we made a base whenever it was in July, middle of July. It's a great run up into October, and it's just been a bit drifty since then. So I think it's a difficult market to call. I'd probably still rather be a buyer than a seller because it did have a breakout, bang, 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 bang. But it's just been a bit scrappy. The short-term trade, I think if you watched last week's thing, live stream, I was trying to buy it, wasn't I? And I didn't have enough margin in my account. So I was trying to buy when it got clobbered in the payrolls last week. Then it rallied this week. I thought I'd missed it. So I bought it yesterday, like I said, about 5 o'clock, just to see, is it going to have a run back up to 107? So I thought it was an interesting short-term trade. But from a medium-term trade, it is all a bit sideways. And you can see that this is the hourly chart we're looking at now. Great run up, but all a bit sideways since beginning of October. So I don't know. It's an okay trade for me. Let's see. Let's see what happens. Which brings us to the other markets, like Euro, you know. So to me, it does look like that Euro has broken the downtrend. So I would probably be quite happy if we had a bigger sell-off in the Euro, let's say 100, 200 point sell-off in the Euro against the dollar. I'd quite happily be a buyer, I think, with a stop underneath that low from October. So that could be interesting. If we did have a bit more dollar strength in it next week, it's going to put pressure on the likes of Euro dollar, obviously. Let's see what happens. See what happens there. I think somebody in the WhatsApp group was buying it today, which I thought was a fair enough trade. I suppose it's an interesting trade with a stop below 106, I think they were talking about. But for me, on the dailies, it's interesting, but perhaps a sell-off makes it a bit more interesting. Pound against the dollar, same. I think there could be a trade next week. I think I said that in the webinar last night, I think. There could be a trade next week for me, buying the dip, pound against the dollar. Interesting, it's still sliding a bit today. So that is an interesting market to watch. Let me put a little green flag next to that so I remember for next week, because I always forget what I'm doing. So that's that. The other trade I've got is Sterling Aussie. So I did a trade this week, taking the, and I mentioned all these in the WhatsApp group, taking the dollar out of the equation, but I bought sterling against the Australian dollar on Wednesday because I thought we've got a nice little trend chugging away for a few days. Bought in, bish bash bosh, away we go. It's easy, isn't it? It's easy as that. So so that trade is still running. That's doing okay. I bought heating oil this week. I got stopped out of heating oil. I thought that was going to be a good trade, heating oil. So I bought the dip. But unfortunately, the dip kept on dipping, so I got stopped out of that. So that's my loser for the week. I made a bit of money on the Bund, and at the moment I'm profitable on the dollar index and sterling against the Aussie dollar, and that's it. That is it for the moment. What's that T-bond doing? Okay, let's see. So that's currencies. So for me, pound against the dollar is interesting next week. Let's see how that works out. Gold, I'm still short in this YouTube account. If you're new to this, I do have an account with real money. Again, it's got my own money in it. It's only got a few grand in that we trade on when we do these. If we see any interesting trades, we do it on here. I went short gold I think it was a few weeks ago now, wasn't it? So I went short at 1981. Stop was originally 2020, something like that. So that's at 1945 now. That's making money. So that's good. CrowdStrike's doing all right. Magna, the trade we did last week, going short on the earnings. That's done all right. So they're all, there's only the little Shopify trade, which is a small trade anyway, because they ran out of margin. It's losing money. So they're all doing okay at the moment. But gold, so I was short gold. I am short gold, sorry. I think it's a confusing market, gold. Oh, actually, it's breaking down again, though. I wondered this week, I think, again, in the WhatsApp group, I said, if you really wanted to buy gold, is this a false break and are we going to rally back up? Who knows? It's all been a bit sideways. But now, it did have a bit of a move yesterday to 1964, but it's dumped again today. So it looks pretty weak to me, gold. I think it's a bit of a mixed picture, gold, to be honest. But that's the that's the daily chart. I'm short. I'm happy to stay short. I don't. Is it going to go back to 1810 anytime soon? I don't know. But I'll stick with the short for now. I don't really have a massive opinion on gold, but we do have. We have been in a downtrend for at least a week now. So I think that's interesting. Silver's interesting as well. I don't really trade silver that much, but sideways market in silver since October. It had a little poke through. You can see that. If you fancied a little punt this afternoon, it's perhaps a puntable market. So on Wednesday, it slipped down to about 22, 25. Good rally up near 23, and here we are again. You're going to see the buyer step in. I don't really trade sideways markets, so it's not much interest to me, to be honest. But it's doing the same thing today that it did earlier in the week. Let's see what happens. That's what the daily picture looks like for silver. It's just all a bit all over the place for me, so it's not a market that I do that much with. Let's take a look at oil and natural gas. Oil, I missed a good trade in oil last week, but whatever. I'm not bitter about it. Oh, it's interesting. We had a big move today. Anyway, I thought, oil had dropped by Wednesday almost 10%. From within a week. So we saw a big drop in oil. And I was wondering on Wednesday, are we going to see the market hold around these old lows, a bit of flip-flop backwards and forwards around $78? And as it turned out, sort of, but I don't know. What's going to happen next week? I think if you thought the sell-off in oil had gone too far, it's perhaps quite an interesting trade down here to be a buyer. It's absolutely too early for me. Or perhaps you're going to get a second chance to go short. I mean, that's the trend in oil on the hourlies since the 20th of October. I think it's a really interesting market to watch next week. I did wonder on the dailies, are we going to see a bit of a recovery from here? I'm in no rush to do anything because the trend is still down. But I think along with pound against the dollar, that could be an interesting market next week. And again, I should have gone short here. Coulda, shoulda, woulda, but didn't. That was last Friday. So that's that. That's oil. Natural gas, I think, is another interesting market. I'm waiting to buy the dip in natural gas as soon as the dip stops dipping. For me, it's been an interesting 8 months. We had the highs from March, around about $3, whatever it was. Sells off and then starts building this trend and has a little look at $3, can't get through. And then we had the breakout in October. Pushed quite high, 10% move through that level, that old level. And for me, it's drifted back and we're coming back to the trend that's been in place since May. So for me, it's still weak today, but I think it's an interesting market to watch next week to see if there's an opportunity there as well. So there's actually, I did say today when I did the WhatsApp update today, I don't think there's anything for me today, but there's a lot for next week potentially, and this is another one for me where let's see what happens next week with that one. So that's that. Nat gas worth watching. What else? Bitcoin's interesting. We've had a breakout in Bitcoin. If you've watched this, I've been bullish all year. I'm not some crazy crypto nutcase who thinks it's going to $250,000. But, the trend has been up all year in Bitcoin. We had the dip down in September, down to 25, and here we are at 37. Breakout through 32. So, I would still buy the dips on Bitcoin. It's interesting. Has it got a bit overheated? I mean, it can. Look at the moves yesterday. It went to 38, then it dropped to 36, pretty sharpish. But, you know, you can't, if I look at it as I would look at any other market, trend for Bitcoin is up. So I'd absolutely be a buyer of a dip. I'd rather have a deeper sell-off, but the trend is up. So interesting to see, you know, is it gearing up for a big old run back up to 70,000? Who knows? Could happen, couldn't it? We've got lots of hurdles along the way, first of all. Let's not start cracking out the Lamborghinis just yet. But yeah, let's see. Let's see what happens over the next week. But yeah, that trend continues. I'll be able to buy the dip, blah, blah, blah. What else was interesting? Well, other markets. Cocoa again. Look at Cocoa go. What a market that has been this year. So since September last year, cocoa was whatever it was. I don't know. 22, whatever. I don't know. 22, $2,200 a ton or a sack. Doesn't matter, does it? It's just a number. And here we are now at nearly 4,000. So the price of cocoa almost doubled in the last year. And that trend is still going strong. Really interesting market. Orange juice, we had a bit of volatility. Crazy candle on the 31st of October, Halloween, appropriately enough. So a massive turnaround in Halloween. Trend is still up in orange juice. It's been a really interesting market. And what else did I think looked interesting? Oh, palladium. Look at palladium. It absolutely continues to swan dive. This was a great market for me on the way up. I've not traded it hardly at all since then. Some crazy moves. But, you know, palladium, March 22 was 3,500. And here we are below 1,000. You know, some massive move, massive sell-off, still weak, blah, blah, blah. I wouldn't buy that at all. But it'd be interesting to see what happens if it goes back to... I can't even zoom in on that low, whatever that low is down there. Oh, I can't be bothered trying to zoom in on it. It's been a long week. 850. Let's see, the lows from August 2018. So, but absolutely cratering the old palladium price. So in summary, what have we got to watch next week? Well, stock markets, is this where the trends, the bounce backs run out of steam? Let's see. Let's see what happens. Pound against the dollar, I would quite like to buy a dip. I'd be quite happy if that dipped over the next couple of days. Interesting to see what happens if it gets back to those old lows near 120. Natural gas, because the trend has been up and we're dipping. Are we going to see some strength come in? The open trades I've got running are the open trades. So yeah, quite a bit to watch, I think, next week. Not so much, like I said, for me to do this afternoon. The only thing I should have done this morning or last night, but I was a bit tired. I just had enough of looking at markets. Was the T-bond trade? Where have the T-bonds gone? There. So maybe there's an opportunity this afternoon, if that has a little dip back. I'd quite like to be a buyer of those after that sell-off yesterday. Let's see. But to be honest, once I finish this, that's it for me for the week. So that's the markets. Lots to look at. Interesting week. Like I say, if you want to have... What's happened with that now? Why is that not going backwards? If you want to have access to that webinar that I did last night, it's about an hour and 10 minutes, I think. Drop me an email, dj@davidjonestrading.co.uk, and I'll send you the link. I probably won't send it today, but I'll send it over the weekend. You can see the partner I've partnered with for trading. Go to bit.ly davidtrade/davidtrade. The link is in the description. I'm going to do a whole load of stuff with them that will be exclusive to people who have accounts with them. Obviously, it's free. You just need to open an account. But that's it. So lots to watch. Have a look at some of that. And let's take a look at any questions that have come in and see what people think. There's not many questions today. I think everybody's a bit like me, feeling just that end of week feeling, thinking just wrap this up and go home. Right, copper and aluminium. Copper, I think copper's been interesting. It's a bit slow, copper, but it has held over a big level. Hold on a second, where is it? Down here. On the dailies, oh, it got slammed today. What's going on there? This level, it's been pretty boring, copper, I would say, for a lot of this year. But since May, let's call it 3.5, 355, has held, yeah? So I think it's quite interesting. It sort of faffed around these lows in October. We had a bit of a rally and we've come back again. So it's a bit sideways for me. I would buy the weak. If I had to do anything, I'd buy the weakness. It's not the most exciting market. You know, I think, why trade that when you can go and trade cocoa It just goes up all the time. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens down at these 3.5 lows, but it's not really an interesting one for me, to be perfectly honest. And aluminum spot. What's it look like? Yeah, we looked at that before, haven't we? I mean, again, it's just a bit boring, isn't it? You know, it's a bit sideways. I'd be a buyer of the dip, but it's just a bit. It's not really done anything, is it? You know, we're trading now where we were in October last year. So we've had obviously volatility, but nothing particularly exciting. So that's it. What are we looking at? Euro Aussie. To look at that one. Yeah. Did I say buy the dip on that the other week? I seem to remember that. I mean, that trend for me is still up, so I'd be a buyer. Bit scrappy perhaps over the last month or so. Euro yen, Euro JPY. Let's try and find one that looks nice. Oh, that looks nice. There you go. Breakout, isn't it? What a great trend that's been. I'd be a buyer. The only question is, where is my stop going to go on Euro yen? Would you rather wait for a pullback? You know, it's always a tricky one, isn't it? When we have a market that's absolutely zooming away, where'd you put your stop? The closest I'd have my stop, probably 157.5 on Euro yen, but that trend is up. GBP CAD. I don't know. I'd probably buy it. It's been a bit sideways, hasn't it? You know, for much of this year. But if we flip it to the hourlies and look to the trend, then that would probably be the trend that I go with, that I went with. Hang on. Yeah, that's a nice trend on the hourlies, isn't it? So I would be a buyer, and my stop would probably be at 167, to be honest. But that's been a good trend. It's been a great trend, that, hasn't it, on the old sterling CAD. Aussie yen. What's that look like? Oh, I go short. There you go. Go short Aussie yen. Should we do that? I haven't got enough margin in. I didn't put any margin in this week. You could take the view. You know, this has been a real barrier up here, hasn't it? 98.6 has been a real barrier for the Aussie dollar against the yen. That's going back. It's more than a year ago. Sorry. So you could take the view. It's failed again, hasn't it? So one idea would be to go short. So that's what I would do if I had to do anything. To be honest with you. Solana. What's Solana? Solana is not some stupid cryptocurrency, is it? Pardon my French. It is a stupid cryptocurrency. All right, I don't know. You should buy it because it's going to the moon. I mean, it's tripled in value in the last 2 months. I don't know. I mean, cryptos. You know what I think cryptos, yeah? They're like Pokemon cards. It's not really trading, crypto. But if you make money from it, fair enough. It'd be interesting to see what happens up around 60, if it got to 60. I mean, I have a problem chasing runaway markets. Yeah, where would your stop go? I know most people who trade crypto don't care about stops. They probably, don't even know what stop loss is. But where would your stop loss go? Mine would probably have to go around 36, I think, which is 30% away from where the market is now. So, yeah, interesting to see what happens up at 60. I do think, with Bitcoin, which is perhaps a bit more of a sensible crypto, I don't understand the ins and outs. I can hardly spell blockchain. Never know what it's for, and I don't really care. I do think that perhaps we're definitely seeing momentum coming back into these cryptocurrencies, and I don't think we're at the stupid levels yet. So I do think they could well have further to go. The problem I always have is how do you manage the risk, But if someone's made money off that, then that's great. That's been a bit of a nutsold move, isn't it? So let's see what happens up at 60. Dollar yen. Do you think that Japan will intervene? I got absolutely no idea. Don't really care at all. Who knows what the Japanese central bank's going to do? Couldn't give a monkeys. Yeah. So I never even think about that stuff, to be honest. But let's have a look at it anyway. Dollar yen. Where is it? Let's see what the market thinks. It's interesting here. We're back up at these big highs, aren't we? I mean, I would be a buyer because the trend is up. I would be a bit cautious up here because 152 we know is the highs from October. I mean, an aggressive trade would be to go short, wouldn't it? Would be to go short. So it's quite an interesting one, this actually. So let's say I don't even know the likelihood of them intervening, right? But let's say the market is worried about them intervening. Perhaps we will see some caution up here, and it's an old high, blah, 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 blah. So going short dollar yen could still be an interesting trade up at these levels, you know, and if 152 is the high, you know, pick a stop, I don't know, 152 and a half. So you go short now, you've got a 100-point stop. And if the thing does sell off, you've got perhaps quite a lot of downside on it. It's quite interesting. See, I'm talking myself into that trade now, based on something I know absolutely nothing about, whether the Japanese central bank are going to intervene. But interesting to see what happens up here, you know. But the trend has been up, but this has been, you know, such a big barrier for dollar yen. JPM. It's a bit boring, isn't it? It's gone a bit pear shaped, isn't it? We had a good trend in JP Morgan. Let me tidy these lines up a bit. We had this good recovery trend going on in JP Morgan. Look like that. I would speculate that trend has changed and we're in a downtrend and we're going to go short. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go short JP Morgan. Going to stick it to the man. So I think we're in a new trend for JP Morgan and that trend is down. Let's do a trade. Let's go short this lot. Where's the stop going to go? 154, 144, 155 stop. That's what we're going to do. So JP Morgan, we're going to sell them. I think the trend is down. JP Morgan Chase, right? I haven't got much money in the account. Don't know if I can do this. What did I say for a stop? 154, 154 on a stop. Selling 5. Oh, fine. I got enough margin to do that. Right. Let's let me just do the maths quickly in my head. I can sell 10 of them. So I think we've seen a bit of a turnaround in JP Morgan. So I'm quite interested in going short. But if it goes to 155, I'll admit I'm wrong. But I think it's quite an interesting short up here. You know, we had a bit of a bearish doodah yesterday on the candles. Bit of a quieter start today. I think that's an interesting short, JP Morgan. So let's do it. Right, let's go. So we're going short wherever they are now, 35, on 34, 35. Okay. Let's see how that one works out on JP Morgan. So yeah, I would have absolutely tried to be a buyer on the way up. Would have got caught out as it turned round at the end. But I do wonder if the trend now is down. Let's see. Let's have a look this time next week at the little JP Morgan trade is doing. Do you think smaller cap EV companies will ever go back to a decent price? Example, Neo and Lucid. Don't know. Lucid, they've got a really nice car, Lucid, haven't they? It's a fortune, isn't it? Let's see if we can find the Lucid car. Let's talk about cars rather than markets. It's a really pretty looking thing, but there it is. I quite like it anyway. It looks quite futuristic. But I think they're expensive. And it's a tough game, isn't it? But Neo, oh God, Neo is bombed out, isn't it? It had a go, didn't it? Had a go. And it's come all the way back down again. Okay, let's have a look at Tesla in a minute. We haven't looked at Tesla for a while. I mean, I would still, you know, if you absolutely wanted to buy Neo, the Chinese car company, this is the place to buy. And I would have stops under $7 if it was me. But I just cannot get any momentum, can it? What about Lucid? Lucid Group. Ouch. Oh, I wouldn't buy that one. Oh, that is painful, isn't it? So what were they? They were $64 in Feb 21, and they're like $4 now. I would have no interest in touching these until the thing turns around. It's new lows again today. That is the market telling you we absolutely hate this stock, and it's in the toilet. But let's have a look at Tesla. Because Tesla, what have they been doing? What would you do with Tesla? I'd buy Tesla. I think that's what I would do. It has fallen out of that trend. I would give it another go, and I go a stop under 180. Let's do that trade as well. Let's 180 or maybe a bit further. 170. Let's say 175. We're going to buy Tesla. 175 stop and see if it can sort itself out. So I don't, even though it's fallen out of the trend, I'm sort of quite tempted to give it another go. Let's see if we can do this. Stop loss 175. I will put some more margin in this account next week. All right, that'll do. Let's just buy 4 of them. Okay, so we're buying 4. Stop loss 175. The 210.84. Let's put those in. We're making 20 cents on JP Morgan already. Brilliant bit of trading that was. Right, so we're in the Tesla trade now. And then once again, I've used all my margin up. But interesting, yeah. But that Lucid, oh, that looked absolutely horrible, didn't it? Shame. It'd be a shame if it doesn't succeed. It'd be good to have some more cars out there. So that's that. Chromium. What is chromium? Chromium. Chromium. No idea what that is. Chromia? Is it a crazy crypto again? Don't know what it is. Don't know. Now. What's now? N-O-W. N-O-W. Oh, hang on a sec. N-O-W. Service now, is it? Stock. Which stock is it? I'm guessing it's that one. Service now. Oh, wow. That looks interesting, doesn't it? What do they do? Technology services, packaged software. Okay. So I would, if I was going to do anything, well, let's think about this. There are arguments for both here, and this is often the case in markets. You know, it's never clear cut as to whether something is a buy or a sell, because if it was, you know, markets would just go in one direction, wouldn't they? So I think you could view this a couple of ways. I would want to be a bit more patient. We've had a sideways market since June. Bang, 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 bang. It's broken out the sideways market. So do you take the view this is a false break? So if you took the view it's a false break, you'd go short and say, look, the market's overreacted. I'm going to go short. I'm going to put a stop in at 640, for example, and I'm expecting the thing to pull back into the range. You could also take the view, well, the market's been going bang, 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 and we've broken out. Here we go. We're going to start moving higher. And if I was doing that, I'm not quite sure where I would put my stop. So for me, the jury is still a little bit out on that one because we're only 3 days into the break. But let's come back to it maybe next week and see where it is. I suppose if I had to do anything, probably initially I would go short and I would take the view it's a false break to the upside, blah, 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 blah. So yeah. Oh, someone said Walmart. I missed Walmart. Let's have a look at those. What do they look like? It's all right, isn't it? It's having a go. Trending higher. I would buy the dip. I wouldn't want to buy it now. I'd rather buy a dip. But it's interesting, isn't it? If it dropped back to like the below 160, to me it looks interesting. Coca-Cola, I've got a trade on Coca-Cola. There we go. We did that the other week. Bought 70 at 53, and they're currently 56. So I bought those because they had fallen out of something. There we go. So I bought them. When did I buy them? What did I say I paid for them? 53.10. So I bought them. I think in here somewhere. I don't know. I mean, I'm still in the trade. I'm quite happy. I was taking the view. We're all a bit sideways on Coke. I bought them because they blipped below, treated it as a false break. So I would buy the dip on Coke. I just wait maybe for the dip to stop dipping is what I would do. But I'm quite happy to stick with the trades for now. Okay, that's it. If that's it, I think we're done for the week, which suits me. So, like I say, if you'd like to see that webinar, if you did register for it, don't worry, I'll send out the link this weekend. If you didn't register for it, you want to see it, drop me an email, dj@davidjonestrading.co.uk. All the information is in the description. And that's it, okay? And we'll do it all next week. So lots to watch next week. We've got that. We've got the inflation numbers from the US. Are stock markets getting a bit toppy? Is there going to be a buying opportunity in natural gas? Is it buy the dip in the pound? Loads to watch. If you're in the WhatsApp group, you get all this stuff every day. Don't forget. So if you want to try the WhatsApp group for a month, try that out. And otherwise, we're done, aren't we? So have a good weekend. Good luck with your trading. And we'll do it all again next Friday when I will hopefully got a little bit more energy than I have at the moment. But have a good week and see you next week.